But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Hello, children. Sorry we're a few minutes late. You know how we are with technical difficulties. Welcome to HBR News 144, Grammys 2018, and Trump is not a feminist. You don't say. That's my Nicolas Cage impression. Hold on, my microphone is a little bit powerful. Let me turn that down a little bit. Okay, so this is a show where your favorite Badgers ferret out the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss slam, bam, Badger style. And the race to see who can call Max a feminist cuck first begins now.
You're a feminist cuck.
Okay. I meant the people that are listening to the show, Mike, for Christ's sake.
Sorry, I get excited sometimes.
You got host privileges. Of course, you're going to be ahead of everybody else. But anyways, for the record, I'm actually anti-feminist, just like my fellow panelists. How about that for a segue? Today's HBR News panel consists of Dr. Randa McCam, Panda, long-range rhetorician, and it is rumored that in the world of British espionage, she is referred to as 009.5. I'll let you guess why that is. Hannah Wallen is also here, Pussycat Punisher and Punster, and she likes to make apocalypse jokes like there's no tomorrow. Very fitting for our type of show. And I'm your host, Max Derritt, Simpsons kin, and definitely not Flood from Super Mario Sunshine. Although I do have a different kind of sentient water hose. Don't think about it too much. It doesn't mean anything. Today, we will be discussing the following topics. Trump says he's not a feminist. Yep, something that all of us could have guessed given his anti-PC ethic. But we're going to talk about it anyways. Rather, we're going to talk about how all the mainstream media outlets have an opinion on this. Seriously, if you go to Google and type in Trump says he's not a feminist, first 4 pages, it's all the different publications just offering their opinion on it. Moving on. The Grammy Awards were on last Sunday. It was an award show that seemed to be a lot less about music this time around and a lot more about politics. A lot like how slumber parties aren't actually slumber parties, but are actually about teenage girls teaching their fellow female friends how to kiss. At least that's what I've been told.
I'm not saying anything.
I heard you unmute and I knew you were going to say something. Anyways.
Nope, not saying anything.
All right. We'll also be discussing an essay posted on Quillette called Hate Speech Does Not Incite Hatred. In similar news, video games do not incite violent crime, vaccines do not cause autism, and the dinosaurs didn't die out because you touch yourself at night. Actually, that last one is true. As well, we pondered the timeless philosophical question asked many times in countless science fiction novels, can sex bots be raped? Katie Parker of the School's Consent Project thinks so. When we asked a regular HBR listener named Joey Jojo if sex bots can in fact be raped, he vociferously replied, let's find out. God love you, Joey Jojo. You're the man. And finally, our bonus
Pushing the boundaries, man. Pushing the boundaries.
What? It's a joke. And finally, our bonus story for the patron-only after show. If there's one thing I didn't think feminists had the guts to complain about, it's Chris Hemsworth. Or rather, movies that feature Chris Hemsworth, the almighty Thor. We'll be discussing an article titled, It's Time to Wage War Against War Movies That Glorify Outdated Models of Masculinity. And one of the war movies in question is the recently released 12 Strong featuring the aforementioned Chris. During the after show, I will be writing a response article, It's Time to Wage War Against Softcore Porn That Glorifies Impossible Masculine Ideals, and the background picture will be the poster for the new 50 Shades movie. Anyway, if you would like to participate in our after shows, either as an audience member or a participant, please consider becoming a patron by going to www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Whew, how about that? Okay, so before we get into reading the stories, I have to ask Mike, how many people in the chat are now passing around the hashtag Max is a cuck meme?
Hang on.
Because I don't have it open. I was sort of scared to look.
Yeah, no, I think that meme died, man. It
What? Oh, okay.
I know nothing.
I know. I saw nothing. Nothing.
It was a flame that grew fast and died young.
Yeah, that's my life in a nutshell. Evil. Okay, so I'm going to read the first right up here, and then because I have a lovely dinner beside me that I have to pick up off the floor, I'm going to pass this over to Hannah as soon as I'm done. So, Trump doesn't consider himself a feminist, and all of us collectively on the internet say no shit. While U.S. President Donald Trump was in Davos, Switzerland for the World Economic Forum, he was interviewed by Piers Morgan, a former winner of The Apprentice. Wait, he won The Apprentice? I didn't know that. Okay. During the interview, oh, is that a joke? I don't know. During the interview, which appeared on British network ITV, Morgan asked whether Trump considers himself a feminist, to which Trump responded, no, okay, I'm not going to even do the impression. No, I wouldn't say I'm a feminist. He followed up with saying, I'm for women, I'm for men, I'm for everyone. I think people have to go out and they have to win, and women are doing great, and I'm happy about that. He also pointed out that he received a large portion of the women vote in various categories. Trump has been under fire since before his victory in the 2016 presidential election for being a supposed misogynist. While it may not come as a surprise to many of his detractors that he doesn't consider himself a feminist, what his critics don't seem to understand is that one does not need to be a feminist in order to be a good person. Thank you very much, Andrew G., for doing that write-up for us. While I'm picking up my salad, seriously, does this surprise anybody?
Is that a metaphor? No. I'm sure it can be for something, but no,
What?
it does. It's not surprising at all that that Trump is not a feminist. I'm sure it probably came as a huge surprise to all of the feminists that helped to organize the supposed giant anti-Trump march that contained actually like less than 5% of the female population in the last couple of years, but was touted as such a huge thing. The one that they shipped people in to march in various cities and then bragged about how big it was. Yeah, why would Trump be a feminist? Why would he, if he's pro-woman, why would he get involved in a movement that tells women they can't do anything because they're victims of everything? He's a businessman. His entire pathway to success has been based on no excuses and getting shit done. He couldn't possibly be a feminist. That's not how they do stuff. That's not how they handle their lives. That's not how they handle women. It's not how they handle their rhetoric. The only thing that feminists have ever done is get really, really good at demanding that men do things for the feminist movement in the name of female proxy victims. It's not really anything to brag about, is it? So it's kind of fake to me that anybody is shocked that someone like Trump would say, no, I wouldn't call myself a feminist. Women are doing great and I'm happy about it. Because that actually is quite fitting. Feminists are not happy that women are doing great. Gloria Steinem pretty much pushed Dr. Farrell out of the feminist movement when he was the president of the National Organization for Women because he said women were doing great and he was happy about it. So why would anyone be surprised that phrase would come from someone who says he's not a feminist?
Wait, Dr. Farrell was the president?
He was the president of the National Organization for Women.
Oh, there you go.
And like he was genuinely what feminists say their definition stands for. So they kicked him out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, like I said, this is no big surprise. We all know what kind of person that Trump is, whether or not you actually agree with the sentiment that he's a misogynist or not. We all knew this is what his position would be. And it's not like he's not a fan of strong women. I mean, you have Nikki Haley currently going out, in front of Congress on his behalf. And like during that whole Jerusalem debacle where he said he's moving the embassy to Jerusalem, Nikki Haley just telling everybody off. That was pretty badass. And he's, even though, you know, Melania, she's a supermodel and all that, she's not completely devoid of merit. I mean, she speaks several languages. She's beautiful. She's, you know, she's getting up there in years, and yet she still managed to be successful. So that and many other reasons, you know, he's surrounded himself with with powerful women. But yeah, beyond that, why is this such a big deal? Honestly, whenever anybody asks you if you are something and you're unable to determine what the implications of that question are right on the spot, then you should refuse to answer the question. I mean, unless, you know, you're on a radio show or you're on TV like Donald Trump was. And then in that case, what I would sort of do is do what Jordan Peterson did when he's asked a similar question about whether or not feminism has been harmful to men. And he said something to the effect of, well, you should define what you mean by feminism. That's what everybody should say, because when you answer it that way, you lay out your position and you lay it out in a way that seems reasonable. You say, if you mean by feminism, you mean allowing women to participate in the world and achieve things on the exact same level as men, and make sure they have equal rights, equal opportunities, make sure they don't have to worry about going into the workforce and being sexually harassed. Great. If by feminist you mean that the entire Western world is a white supremacist capitalist patriarchy that needs to be taken down, then no, I'm not a feminist. And I think that's the same definition that Hannah, myself, and Mike use.
Well, it's never quite as explicit as that. I mean, he's only answered the first question. Question 1 is, are you a feminist? If the answer is no, then question 2 is, are you a women's rights advocate? Usually the answer is yes. Can you guess what question 3 is? It's, are you a men's rights advocate? The answer, of course, is no. And question 4 is, are you sure you're not a feminist? I've done a thing. You see the thing I've done there? I've done a thing.
Yeah. No, I did see the thing you did there. I just have chicken and salad in my mouth. Just give me 5 seconds.
I would, honestly, if somebody asked me that question in an interview, I would have no hesitation to answer, no, I'm not a feminist, no matter what you mean by it. When I say feminist, I know what I mean. So, like Trump, he probably has, because he is on Twitter at least enough to tweet regularly, he has probably seen some of the Twitter bullshit. And Twitter feminists, they're probably the worst PR for the feminist movement that they could possibly be. They're not the worst PR the movement has. I think the Violence Against Women Act might have them beat, but they're definitely, it's like feminists on Twitter. I don't think they could make their movement look worse if they were trying to do it on purpose, because I'm not sure that they're that competent. But yeah, as far as what anybody that sees them do is going to think of feminism, I think anybody that's watched the chatter on Twitter by feminists and then been asked, are you a feminist, is going to say, no, I'm not one of those guys. They're nuts.
You know what I don't understand is that even feminists like Lacey Green will admit that there's infighting in feminism all the time. Why don't they just fraction themselves off from all the crazies? Why don't they have certain segments of the feminist population, like certain powerful voices, speak out against what is right and what is wrong? I think the reason why is because they're so concerned with equality and making sure that everybody's voice is heard that they, what's the appropriate term? Anyways, they're so concerned with equality that they fail to call out the bad ideas, if that makes any sense.
I think they are more concerned with, I don't think they're concerned about the quality of feminism, and I don't think they're concerned about their fellow feminists. I think a lot of them are invested in, I joined this movement because it makes me feel good. If you take away that it makes me feel good, you take away a big part of my life. Therefore, feminism has to be what I thought it was when I joined. That is what they are invested in. And I, I see two distinct sets of feminists in the world. Yeah, there's subsets within those sets, and some of the subsets actually overlap those two sets. But there are feminists who know what feminists are doing as a movement, as an overall umbrella with all of the feminists included. The elite, the academics, the leadership, and the feminist organizations and so on. And then there's the grassroots. And honestly, there's just a huge chasm of disconnect between those two groups. The first group, the elites, they know exactly what the fuck they're doing. They know that they are fighting for a collective response. They know that they are fighting for political power and for money, for feminist organizations, and for professional feminists. And they know that they're fighting within control, or fighting for control within the scope of an authoritarian collective system. That they're fully aware of that. And they are fully aware that they are fighting for authoritarian social micromanagement. Basically the ability to dictate every little aspect of people's lives. The grassroots, not so much. There are some, like I'm sure Anita Sarkeesian's probably a little more savvy about the collectivist stuff that she talks about, the authoritarian collectivist stuff that she talks about than she.
No, what makes you say that?
I think she knows a little bit about that. She probably, I don't think she's smart enough to fully understand what she's doing, to be fair. I hate to say that about somebody.
She's about as competent as my puppet.
Whoever
writes her scripts is the person you're thinking about, yeah. Which I think is still
but
Johnny Mac.
I do think she knows that she's, I mean, I think she probably is, she's probably one of those people that, you know, like you learn to share in kindergarten, and that's all they understand of authoritarian collectivism. Like it's not the same as the hippy dippy libertarian collectivism, where it's just assumed that everybody will cooperate. But I do think she has that attitude, and I do think that she's not just doing it because somebody wrote it for her. I think that's the way she really feels about life and believes about life. But I think most people at her level, the you know, folks that just debate online and make YouTube videos and write their blogs and so on, I'm pretty sure they are clueless. They get spoon-fed their feminism in the classroom and in their television shows, and you know, the media, and from idiot sites like Everyday Feminism, which we occasionally pick as low-hanging fruit. If it's still there, I wouldn't, I don't know. But they don't get real feminist history. They get the edited version where everybody is told that women couldn't vote and men could, and that's why the suffragettes agitated for voting rights. And they don't know that most men couldn't vote either, and that the suffragettes were agitating for something for women that men, for the most part, didn't have, and they weren't agitating for both sexes to get it. They aren't told about the destructive nature of the law and policy that feminists have lobbied for. They aren't told that that their movement is all about obtaining jobs for people with gender studies degrees in intimate partner and sexual violence victims advocacy. They're not told that the organizations that their movement is comprised of are trying to run governments. They don't know any of that stuff. They just hear that dictionary definition and how victimy they are, or how victimy the women in their lives are if they're guys, and that's all they know. So, you know, I don't think any of them are necessarily savvy enough to understand, like, for instance, why Trump thinks he's not a feminist but is for equality.
Yeah.
It's because feminism has never been about equality, and it never will be.
Yeah, and unless they get their act together, and I think the chances of that is very nil.
And,
yeah,
and you know, to me, it speaks less to what kind of a person Trump is, because you mentioned that earlier. Like, regardless of what kind of person he is, the day after his inauguration, a whole group of essentially feminists, it was a feminist-led march, sort of organized to say, fuck you, Trump, you know, rather than talk about any women's rights issues. And then anyone is in the least bit surprised that he goes, no, I wouldn't call myself one of those people who rallied after my inauguration to protest my election and shit. I mean, when the fucking white supremacists came out of Charlottesville, everyone was like, "Oh, you need to condemn these people," and no one's ever asked him, "Do you condemn feminism?" Even like after the women's march, the first one or the second one, no one came out and said, "Hey, Trump, do you condone feminism?" Because for some reason, it didn't seem like an important question.
It's fucking ridiculous. I'm so sick of like people asking this question, just using it as you're either on our side or on the other side. Anytime anybody asks that kind of question, turn away from them. Unless, it's a question like, do you believe in murder? And it's just generally agreed upon, no, we don't.
Well, the answer can be, oh, I'm sure it happens. I think there's actually documentation.
I mean, I'm sure, some murderers are good people. There's some people, like, sometimes that bitch, she just deserved it. I'm sorry. I'm trying to go off. I'm just trying to go off of like what he said during the Charlottesville thing. Like,
actually,
yeah,
he wasn't talking about white supremacists as good people. White supremacists weren't the only people that protested in Charlottesville.
Right.
Like, yeah. I don't know.
The Antifa. Yeah.
No, it's not that. He was acknowledging that there are good people that join various political factions and get mislabeled. And there were people there that were not white supremacists. Charlottesville was supposed to be a free speech march.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but no matter how much the regressive end of the left screams on Twitter and Facebook and other social media that Charlottesville was a white supremacist march, and only a white supremacist march, you say you're going to have a free speech march. People who support free speech and are not white supremacists are going to show up. So there were good people there on the free speech side. Yeah, and there are people who have been roped into groups like Antifa because they have been told over and over and over again that the people that Antifa opposes are fascists. It's like they're called useful idiots. I would say the same thing about the grassroots of the feminist movement. A significant portion of the grassroots of the feminist movement are just useful idiots for a hate movement.
And not useful idiots for the KGB, like people think. It's grown beyond that. It's evolved like bacteria since anything like that was going on. These things clamp onto the most powerful threat narrative out there, and the most powerful threat narrative out there is the women are being oppressed by men forever and always. So this is where the most useful, most idiotic, useful idiots will find themselves, and in their greatest numbers.
It's like a zombie virus. You might try to infect your enemy's nation with it, but it's going to come back on you in the end. I don't know how strong feminism is in Russia, but it would be their just desserts if there is a massive feminist movement that hits that country.
Look up Pussy Riot.
Yeah, I know. They got arrested and there was all the protests and everything. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how prevalent it is in terms of their political discourse and their social impact, as like they're very prevalent here. And, like the U.S. has had now, almost almost 200 years of struggling with ridiculous feminist rhetoric, and that actually came more out of France in the beginning. Russia just tweaked it in the early 20th century with their identity politics overall.
Yeah.
But like they grabbed something that, see, that's the other thing. We hear about this being a KGB thing sometimes, and it's kind of a red herring. Communism was just a red herring. This attitude and belief system, and this mentality, this tendency to fall into or fail to see through this dysfunctional manner of thought, these thought patterns and stuff, that's existed in humanity throughout history. It's existed since the beginning of human thought and awareness, I'm sure. There's always been people that have wanted to take the easiest possible or apparently easiest possible pathway to to achieving what they want without having to work for it. Feminism is just another symptom of that.
Yeah. If you want a good example of that, look up the kulaks and look how they tried to collectivize the farms and how that was supposed to help them out. And then look up the Holodomor. 1 second.
Well, and that's another thing. Like when I referred to collectivism as either being hippy dippy or authoritarian, this is something that, like, it's not the only belief system that's like that. There's a hippy dippy end of individualism too, like the idea that nothing's ever going to go wrong if you have small government or no government. It isn't like that. Every system takes work to maintain. It's just a matter of whether you acknowledge that your system takes that degree of work and what risks are involved in your system. And the fact that if your system involves any degree of collectivism, you can't have it without forcing it on some of the people. You can't force individualism. You can simply, all you can do is refrain from accepting collectivism in that case. It's not forcing anything on someone to not give them something. There's the argument that goes both ways is actually collectivist. But, and it's not to say that there cannot be some balance, that people as a group cannot choose to have some balance and have it work for a period of time, basically as long as the folks involved are willing to be vigilant to avoid it becoming so authoritarian and abusive that it ceases to be functional. But the fact of the matter is that none of these systems are something that there's no magic bullet for a successful society. There's no well, let's have this system and everything will be okay after that. We pick this system or this lack of a system, and we must, as a society, as individuals, there's your individualism and collectivism, right? As individuals, strive to make it work. And none of those things happen fully unless the vast majority of a society is invested in whatever system they adopt. So you have something like the Ukrainian Holocaust. And I know people keep saying the name and then I keep forgetting the name. But
Holodomor, yeah.
The Holodomor, that's what happens when you get a small minority that wants a collectivist society and a majority that does not, and a minority chooses to impose it anyway.
A single person has the potential to ruin the world. Don't be that person. Okay, we got to move on. We spent half an hour talking about why it's good that Trump says he's not a feminist. Let's a good discussion, don't get me wrong, but we do have to move on. All right. So this write-up comes to you from yours truly. 60th annual Grammy Awards happened last Sunday, and just like every award show for the past year and a half, there was political messaging behind every corner. The political messaging was akin to Gollum and the One Ring, by my estimation, but instead of the Grammy trophy being the process in question, it was the stage, where the winners could have the opportunity to virtue signal about how terrible Trump is. I'm looking at you, Trevor Noah. Even when the show displayed significant gains for the Hollywood brand of identity politicking, there were professional complainers ready to jump forward like Star Wars fanboys on anybody who says The Last Jedi wasn't that bad. For example, the Best Album of the Year category did not feature any white men, a fact that former Star Trek actor George Takei said was music to his ears on his social media. However, there were unconfirmed reports that the music to his ears was not the quote-unquote diversity displayed at the Grammys, but rather the sound of unconsenting men screaming as Mr. Takei forced his hand down their pants. Expect updates on that situation soon. But yeah, anyways, despite the fact that the Best Album of the Year didn't feature any white men, what was the hashtag trending on Twitter the next day? Grammys so male. Yeah, they're never fucking happy. I'm serious, it actually trended. Go check it out. Okay, moving on. Grammys host James Corden billed himself as, quote, the least diverse host in Grammys history. You know what, though? I think Corden should give himself credit. Compared to Trevor Noah, who was also a presenter at the Grammys, Corden is actually funny from time to time, in my opinion. What?
I'm leaving a mark there. Carry on. I will tell you what I think of that statement after you finish.
Of course, the show also had to... I should rather say entertaining, not necessarily funny. Okay. The show also had to find a way to do an anti-Trump comedy bit. There was a sketch where James Corden began a series of fake auditions to narrate the audiobook of Fire and Fury. Towards the end, Hillary Clinton narrates a portion of the book. Yes, Hillary Clinton showed up during a portion of the Grammys, and she gave a performance that made Corden say, "You bagged it," when she finished reading. In response to this joke, President Donald Trump is expected to spend the entirety of tonight's State of the Union address reading Juanita Broderick's autobiography. For the record, I stole that joke from Ben Shapiro. It seemed that the show was more focused on politics than it was on actual music. You know, like, for example, the tribute to Tom Petty's death could have been one of epic proportions, right? Maybe bringing up the remainder of the Heartbreakers to the stage to play a few songs. That would have been a good idea. But instead, they did a half-assed acoustic rendition of his song Wildflowers in front of several pictures of pastel flowers. Speaking of in memoriam tributes, where the hell are the tributes to Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington? Can I get back in your good books with that statement, Mike?
Yeah, Cornell, yeah. Bennington was... carry on.
All right, thank you. Two gentlemen who revolutionized their respective genres, again, in my opinion. But I guess giving them tributes would take away from the time allocated specifically to Hollywood, calling half of the American population retards. There was political messaging regarding the Dreamers from Camila Cabello, messaging regarding Trump's shithole countries, comment from Bono, and relatively... reasonable messaging regarding the recent spate of sexual assault allegations in Hollywood, in the sense that, sexual assault is bad. That's what I mean by reasonable. That came from Kesha, Janelle Monáe, and other female performers. But all of this messaging fell on deaf ears. The 3.5-hour show averaged 19.8 million viewers, a number that is 24% down from last year. As well, among adults aged 18 to 49 in the U.S., only 5.9% of them watched the show. And you would expect that number to be a little bit higher because a lot of the performers that are at this show are sort of the performers that you expect young people to be into. And I can't really confirm that because even though I'm 24, I can't tell you who any of these people are with the exception of Bruno Mars, who is a pretty decent songwriter. But anyways, yeah, that was the Grammys. Mike, you're the resident musician here. Did you pick up on any of the news from the Grammys? Any thoughts on everything that was going on there?
I sorry to disappoint you, but I couldn't give fewer fucks about the Grammys if I included none at all in my diet, which I already do.
Right. Yeah, you know what? When was the last time that I watched the Grammys? Probably like 5 years ago. It was probably because I didn't have to do anything. I don't find any of today's music at all, music that I can relate to. I mean, there are some artists that are coming out nowadays that actually have really good music. Let's see. I like Cage the Elephant. I like St. Vincent. I like Bombay Bicycle Club. And that's about it. See, I like those artists, but they're not getting the top billing. They're not getting the marketing that can take their music and put it out in the wider market, right? Whereas people like Kendrick Lamar, I can't name you a single song by him. I just hear his name from time to time on the news. Oh, and yeah, speaking of the fact that, like people like Kendrick Lamar, rapper, and several other rappers were nominated last night. They used the Grammys as a stage to speak about, how terrible sexual objectification is and sexual assault, which of course is bad. But then they're turning a blind eye to, the very people that are in the audience, people that have had issues with that. I'm looking at you, Jay-Z. And like they had what would have been great is if Janelle Monáe walked up on stage and say, Jay-Z, what's up? Why are you cheating on Beyonce? And who the fuck cheats on Beyonce, by the way? But anyways, Hannah, any thoughts on the Grammys?
Sorry, my mute button was like, no, you don't get to talk. Okay. No, I honestly, I love music. I have never, ever watched the Grammys. I've never gotten excited about the Grammys. I've never gotten excited about any of those award shows. Didn't watch the Oscars, didn't watch the Emmys. I didn't even watch the Oscars. Was it the Oscars or the Emmys that had, I don't even know which one it was that had Robin Williams perform Blame Canada. I saw that on television after the award show. So this kind of thing is just not what I'm into at all. I'm not really a big watcher of television shows anyway, but it's a bunch of self-congratulatory bullshit. The Oscars were something. They were worth something when the award show was about greatness in the profession. The Emmys were worth something when the award show was about greatness in the profession. And this as well, the Grammys were worth something when the award show was about greatness in the profession. Now that they've turned it into a big virtue signaling, self-congratulatory orgy, it's just dumb. Like, who cares? Who gives a fuck? You gave each other a bunch of awards, patted each other on the back, talked about your political viewpoints, failed completely to entertain, and now it's over. Yay! Yeah. As far as the rest of the article, I'm interested in finding out if more information has come out about George Takei's situation, but with that on hold, there's a couple of things that were in the write-up that I wanted to address and see if I can find, like the first thing, Hillary Clinton coming on to narrate from or read from the audiobook, or to read from the book. I'm sorry, of Fire and Fury. For her to actually show up for this, that kind of tells you something right there. And this is like, if you look at MTV, if you look at basically pop culture, this actually does go back to the style of manipulation of the KGB. Like, the effort has been out there for several years to manipulate the younger generations through music and television and stuff, not using political advertising, but inserting politics into every damn little thing. And this is kind of the end result of it. It used to be where it wasn't entirely blatant and it wasn't in your face. It wasn't so, I don't know, stinkingly, unentertainingly obvious. And now it is. And it's not just dumb, it's kind of insulting that they think that people aren't going to figure out that this is nothing more than a political ad. And everybody keeps talking about it like Hillary's trying to stay relevant. She's never relevant. She was always shoved in our faces. Hillary Clinton has never made herself worth the public's attention aside from criticism. And I know I'm going to get criticism on that from the left because of all the positions that she's held, but she didn't earn any of them. You know, she got them for being a woman in politics and Bill Clinton's wife and saying all of the right things and then not living up to any of her responsibilities. And I don't care if she was a Democrat or a Republican. And as far as I'm concerned, with respect to higher up politics, incumbent politics in the United States, there's not necessarily that significant of a difference between the two. I care that she didn't earn her positions. And part of the reason that she didn't earn her positions is because she's got an innie instead of an outie. So, yeah, this idea of everybody getting all excited about her being up there or thinking it's about her pushing relevancy that she used to have. No, it's politics. It's pushing a political perspective. That's it. And it failed, I think. The only people that seem to be celebrating this are people who would have celebrated it if she'd have gone up there and picked her nose and said, "That's what I think of Trump," and walked off the stage. You know, that's it. There isn't anybody going, "Yeah, I changed my mind, totally changed my mind," because Hillary Clinton went up and read from this book that has been proved to be full of lies. The author's been completely discredited. He was discredited before he wrote the book. You know, there's no real impact from this.
Didn't he imply in the book that Trump was having an affair with Nikki Haley? Who the fuck believes that? Nobody.
I don't know. He said a lot of things in the book, and some of them were actually proved to be impossible. So there's that. What was the other one there was something else, and it must have been further down in the right. Oh, Kesha talking about sexual assault allegations. Kesha, as far as I'm concerned, she's the one. Let me make sure I haven't gotten this wrong. She's the one that made a sexual assault allegation and used it as a reason to demand to get out of her contract. And when she was offered the ability to fulfill her contract without having to work with the person she was accusing, she turned it down and sued. So obviously it was about getting out of her contract, not about a sexual assault by a person. Because if she had the ability to fulfill her contract with the company that didn't do anything to her, without having to deal with the person who is now taken off of that job, which is a punishment, I think. I don't know. Maybe not having to work with her was a reward. But if that was all it was about, if it was only about dealing with the assault allegation itself, then that would have been satisfactory. Maybe she could have turned around and said, "Nope, I want something more punitive to hammer this home, make the person, fire the person, public reprimand, pay me more money," something like that. But I want out of my contract, and I only want out of my contract. That was fake. And I'll stand by saying that was fake. She's got no business representing sexual assault accusers unless the message is that sexual assaults have to be treated as a banhammer for people, as a wrecking ball in people's lives. That's A-okay. We're allowed to do this, whether they're true or not. I don't know if that's the message these guys are trying to send, but that's what I get from Kesha being included. And every time I see it, is that actually the appropriate way to put her name? Is that she spells it $, ha, Because
it's actually pronounced ka-cha-ching-ha.
yeah, it's I don't know. I know it's supposed to be clever. I'm sorry.
No, I look. I understand. Look, I don't trust anybody who has a typo in their birth certificate either, so it's okay.
Well, I'm fine with there's a typo in somebody's birth certificate. That's not their fault, and I don't even mind the people that this typo is cool, but
No, they could have changed it in the 26 years they've been alive. Yes, it is their fault.
no, it's actually really a pain in the ass to get your birth certificate corrected. I actually had to deal with that with my son. So nah. And I don't even mind people trying to be unique, but for crying out loud, it's just I think it's trashy to have a $sign in your name.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not trashy to have a $sign in your password, but I don't know.
Like
it makes it hard to read.
It's a persona she has. I mean, I think to my knowledge, I only remember her from back when I had a job and I had to listen to the radio other people were listening to, and she had this one song where she was basically
tick-tock on the clock.
That's the one. That's the one. Yes, where she's basically playing the part of a whore. I mean, I'm pretty sure she's singing lyrics someone else wrote, but it's you can see what it is from top to bottom. It's a marketing ploy to create the character of a slut who doesn't give a fuck and does what she likes. And
you know how much. Sorry.
So the thing that sex workers all got mad at Shapiro for criticizing because they took it. Well, I shouldn't say all, but there were some on Twitter that just went ape shit over Shapiro criticizing that because they took it as a statement on sex workers and not a statement on people like Kesha who show their ass and then demonize men for looking at it. Don't look at me. Don't look at my naked ass. Don't look at me wiggling this. Look, I mean, don't look, but pay me money because I'm showing it. I'm sorry, but yeah, there's a significant difference between that and the sex worker who owns her sexuality, and acknowledges that she is openly using it, doesn't demonize men over that, because hey, she's making a profit and she knows where her profit's coming from. But so they're saying in the chat she dropped the $sign after rehab. Well, that's good.
Well, it's probably because she's all out of the $sign, if you know what I mean, after going into rehab.
I can imagine. That's probably expensive. But hell.
She couldn't afford to have the Okay. Yeah. If you want to know what type of person Kesha is, how does the lyric go? So the dudes are lining up because we hear they got swagger, but we kick them to the curb unless they look like Mick Jagger.
Yeah, okay. What is that about? Why is a girl that young sort of idolizing Mick fucking Jagger? He's a skeleton.
Yeah, have you seen what Mick Jagger looks like? Okay.
Well, it's honestly, most people only remember the lips.
Yeah. True.
What exactly is it about the lips?
No, they're just so prominent that nothing else registers.
Yeah, as Eddie Murphy says, black people look at Mick Jagger and say, "You got some big ass lips." That's what he said. By the way, I'm not just tooting my own horn. I mean, I am a little bit, but this is actually a fact. People have told me oftentimes in my life that I look a bit like Mick Jagger, but it's because I actually have really big lips. But anyways, let's move on from that.
People have told me I sound like Keith Richards. Well, they've told me I sound like Johnny Depp from those movies, and I take it as a compliment.
You have, Mike, you have a voice that I think is the ideal voice that everybody would use for British audiobooks. And whenever I hear you talk, I just think I'm listening to a British audiobook. That's a compliment, by the way. I know it probably doesn't sound like one.
I think you sound just like Mike Stevenson and Dr. Rainer McKim.
Oh, yeah.
But that's two different people. Even that's not a straight answer.
I don't need to give straight answers.
I mean, okay. This is getting weird. I don't want to be a schizophrenic. Okay. Going on to the third topic. Hey, do one of you want to read this since I've read the first two?
We've only got 2 super chats, but we might as well do them.
Yes.
Arctic Master 1190 gives us $5 and says, "You guys are awesome. Love you guys." Oh,
I love you more.
I love you more than that. Well, no, we both love you more than each other. That's
I love you times infinity cubed. Beat you. What's the next one?
Cyberberserk gives us 100 secs. Oh, that joke never gets old. And says when goddamn MTV came, people started to look at the musicians instead of listen to the music. Yeah, well, it was kind of inevitable, though, wasn't it?
Well,
Yeah. Video killed the radio star.
When MTV came, people started to accept more crap from the more visible musicians. But the truth is, they were looking at the musicians before that, because you had, American Bandstand, you had other shows that had musicians on display. I mean, even though Elvis Presley was a great singer, half of his performance was visual. And you had a lot of country that a lot of their performance was visual as well. They didn't just get up there and sing. And a lot of the pop music, their performance wasn't necessarily visual, but you had a different style of dress between pop music and country. Dramatically, actually, different style of dress between pop and country. So yeah, people have looked at the musicians for quite some time. It's just that became more important than the music.
Well, we have more than 6 senses, but for the purpose of this bit, I'll say we have 6 senses. The more of those senses you can appeal to, the better chance you have of immersing people in the art you're trying to create. And
I don't know, though. Considering how hard they dance up there, I don't want to smell the musicians. No offense to the musicians.
You say that now.
I have a comment on that, but I don't want people to think I'm a perv. Let's move on.
I'm surprised you didn't go with taste, because that's theoretically
no,
possible.
I don't want to do that either. Not while they're performing it, especially.
Okay, one more super chat. Fielder Bears gives us $5. Says Mike has best voice. Say more things.
Hey,
I just did. It's just his opinion, man. It's an opinion. He's willing to pay $5 to say and to have me say more things. But
there is another one. Arctic Master 1190 gave us $5 and says, "You guys are awesome. Love you guys.
Yeah,
we love you too."
I did that one, but it's worth saying twice.
Oh, did you? Okay.
No, you're awesome. Okay. Number 3 on hate speech. Mike, Anna, do you want to read this one?
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
All right. On hate speech, this is done by Stapler. A short essay was published this month on Quillette. I hope I pronounced that right. It looks like Quillette anyway. Entitled, "Hate Speech Does Not Incite Hatred" by Gordon Danning. Danning believes that censorship of so-called hate speech by private entities like social media platforms and universities is ineffective and misguided. The fear behind the censorship is that hate speech provokes hatred toward particular groups, which then causes violence against members of those groups. Examples Danning uses of such claims include that anti-police hate speech on the part of Black Lives Matter supporters has led to violence against police officers, and that Donald Trump's campaign rhetoric has led to an increase in hate crimes. And that, in my opinion, personally, would be a false equivalence. But anyway, to take apart these claims, Danning looks at historical accounts and studios of hate radio during the Rwandan genocide. It's best to read it for yourself, but a study which found villages with better radio reception had higher participation in the genocide had more to do with the greater ability to coordinate with others, with the assurance of government that the government supported them and would not punish their acts of violence, than with inciting hatred. The hatred was already there. Media with hateful messages is only effective among those who already agree with it and counterproductive with those who disagree. Danning concludes that there's no evidence that hate speech by ordinary persons increases violence. The scrubbing of the internet by private social media companies like Facebook and Twitter is not only ineffective, but can be dangerous in that this censorship may help the government use allegations of hate speech to silence ideas they don't want to spread. Danning cites the example of Okay. Danning cites the example of Catalan separatists in Spain who burned photographs of the Spanish monarch and were fined on the grounds that they had incited violence and promoted hate speech. Another unintentional consequence for censorship may be in the creation of a persecuted minority composed of those who so-called hateful beliefs, who hold so-called hateful beliefs, who then feel justified in using violence to be heard. So I'm going to address what I said earlier about the false equivalence there. You have the anti-police hate speech on the part of Black Lives Matter supporters, and then you have Donald Trump's campaign rhetoric. Nobody is stopping anybody from countering Donald Trump's campaign rhetoric. And Donald Trump's campaign rhetoric isn't actually equivalent to what is being said by Black Lives Matter supporters. Donald Trump has not called for the killing of anybody. He hasn't said anything about it being okay to engage in violence and rioting because your beliefs are whatever they are. He hasn't advocated that any particular group of people, that any particular group of citizens should be not allowed to be in any particular profession, or blamed like out of hand and wholesale the deaths of any one group of citizens on another. Black Lives Matter has done all of those things, and people trying to criticize them are silenced on social media, so their rhetoric is not opposed in a lot of instances. People get reported for saying that Black Lives Matter could have been a useful movement, could have been of great value, could have gotten a great discussion started, and failed. Because I've been shadow banned for saying that. I've experienced that personally. And the other end of it is Danning notes that the study regarding the Rwandan genocide found that villages with better radio reception had higher participation, specifically because it gave them greater ability to coordinate with others. Where it's not just hate speech, but advocacy for violence, such as Antifa's messages that it's okay to label people Nazis if you disagree with them, and then that makes it okay to assault them. That is coordinating with others with the assurance of at least massive social support. And you also see on social media, at least, these outlooks are able to coordinate with others with the assurance of corporate support. So this is actually more complicated than it's being made out to be. Just saying something hateful online, just saying, the shit that some of the people who push the progressive stack say about white people, oh, I'm all for white genocide, all that crap. Just saying it, no, it's not going to necessarily incite violence. But being able to coordinate with other people of the same outlook, with the backing of corporate entities who silence dissent against that perspective, that's a different story. So it's still a good anti-censorship message. It's just some of the way that it's explained, I disagree with.
Mm-hmm. It's very terrifying. What you said about the teacher, like that whole white genocide thing and people calling for it. In case people don't know, that actually happened. There was a teacher, a professor in the U.S., I can't remember at what university, that said, all I want for Christmas is a white genocide, which is terrible, obviously. But what came of that? Was there any violence because of that? No, I don't think there was. What this study proves, whatever credibility you can take away from one study, what it proves is that by trying to silence opposition on social media, that's not the way to go. It's actually completely 100% ineffective. in this day and age where people from halfway around the world can be connected and can organize so much more easily compared to like 50 years ago, just by silencing somebody, that's going to make them want to organize even faster. It's like the Streisand effect. You try to silence or tell somebody that they can't do something, you get a whole bunch of people focusing in on that, and it just makes the problem even larger. Try to suppress something, well, then eventually sometime in the future, that suppressed element of yourself, whether it be an idea or something else, it's just going to burst forward with horrific revenge. And that's what you get with the Rwanda genocide and all that. So, God, hopefully, people will start to realize that sometime in the future, where they'll realize, okay, the only way that we're going to be able to take down these bad ideas is actually debate about them instead of just virtue signaling online. But I'm not too hopeful.
I am too hopeful.
Okay.
I can't explain why. I just thought I'd contradict you.
I guess there is one more thing I can add, and
Sure.
I'm going to relate it not to hate speech, but to I guess what I would call stupid speech. Shutting up bad ideas online. Like, there's all kinds of bad ideas out there. All kinds of bad ideas. Some of them are like reprehensible bad ideas, right? And we're aware that there are bad ideas. Bad ideas are everywhere. You get to good ideas by eliminating, working your way through the ideas and eliminating the bad ideas from your list based on logic and reason. Well, this idea exists. Let's look at it. Oh, hey, there's these problems with it. Let's not do that. But a lot of that helps to have other people's input, right? You express your bad idea, and somebody goes, "Well, have you thought of this?" And you hadn't. Or somebody goes, "Hey, I disagree because," and you don't have a counter for it. So then you have to examine, "Hey, I don't have a counter for that. Why is that?" Maybe because they're right, or maybe because I haven't thought things through. Sometimes you turn out to come up with a counter to it. Sometimes you don't. The result of forcing bad ideas out of the public discourse is that you force them into little spaces, safe spaces where people don't get contradicted. And then you get idiots coming out of forums where pedophiles go to hide, arguing in all seriousness that children who don't know the difference between fantasy and reality and think there's a little fairy that goes around at night taking your teeth out from underneath your pillow are competent to consent to sex and expecting to be taken seriously. And they're shocked, just absolutely shocked, when people call them on that, because they've been arguing it for a year and honing their arguments for a year in the echo chamber. So they think they're airtight. And they've convinced themselves, hey, this is an airtight argument and I'm right and I should be able to engage in this terrible behavior because I don't think it's terrible. And that's not productive. It would be much more productive to have them contradicted publicly and repeatedly over and over again until they have to re-examine that idea and come to a different conclusion. It's not so much that I approve of advocating these things. It is that I approve of making sure that these things don't get advocated over and over again in the dark until somebody gets stuck in a dysfunctional thought process because they haven't had it contradicted for years.
One of the reasons why a lot of people say that Abraham Lincoln was the greatest president that ever lived was because in his cabinet, I believe the cabinets, I think, he surrounded himself with people that he disagreed with. I think it was somewhat equal Democrats and Republicans. That way he could always be contradicted and he always has to consider his position. That should be mandatory for anybody that holds a large position of power. I mean, like if I were ever to become a politician, and God forbid if I ever did because I'd tax your ass so bad, I would make sure that I would have people from all sides making sure that I was kept in check, making sure that there were things that I hadn't thought of that I need to think of, because that happens to me all the time. And I just think, God, if I were given any responsibility, things would be falling apart at the seams faster than, I don't know. Like, like a craft dinner after it's been sitting for too long. That why is that the first example that came into my head? Anyways, any more super chats, Mike, before we move on to the last topic?
Oh, I haven't checked. Did I may have had a thing to say. Did I have a thing to say? I may have forgotten.
Sorry.
I may have forgotten the thing I had to say, but I don't.
That thing.
Oh, French Honey Badger gives us $2 and says "re," just "re," and only with one R and two E's. It's a very restrained "re." It's a very polite "re." Thank you.
You know how they say "re" in French?
Re.
Oui.
Oui.
But it's a bad joke. It's a bad laugh.
Another $5 from French. Abraham Lincoln was a dictator who suspended habeas corpus and jailed northern congressmen and justices who disagreed with him. Yeah, there's a skeleton in everyone's closet. Like the British like to speak of Winston Churchill like he was a hero, but he was you can be a hero without being a saint, and Winston Churchill wasn't a saint. In fact, heroes very rarely are saints because heroes have to do some fucked up shit sometimes.
Yeah, and Abraham Lincoln, like, obviously you're right, but let's not forget, he had a large part to play in the freeing of the slaves. So, like, we gotta, like, and with Martin Luther King, he was a great man, and his affairs with other women, that wasn't particularly good, but just because, they did bad things, that it shouldn't override the good things that they did.
I remember the thing I was going to say, vaguely regarding the thing we were talking about. Like, a few years ago, I was convinced that every flat earther was a troll. Because the Flat Earth Society, there was no such thing 10, 20 years ago. There were people talking about it on the internet, but I'm convinced they were all trolls. And I think the Flat Earth Society has taken off because some trolls talked about it, and then some very gullible people thought, hey, this is actually quite interesting stuff. Maybe this is true. And this is, I don't like to speak ill of trolls because that makes it sound too like a troll hunt or the kind of witch hunt that's happening right now. It's a troll hunt. It's a hunt for anyone who's not talking about the things we want them to talk about. But this is the chaotic power that trolling can have. If you troll people into thinking the earth is flat, then they'll actually believe you. And then they'll go on the internet and find other people who were gullible enough to fall for the trolls. And this is one of those things that only can happen because of the internet. Because trolls come into contact with gullible people, and then gullible people come into contact with other gullible people that would normally only be hundreds of miles apart.
Yeah, that's my...
And it's not everything. Not everything is like the Flat Earth Society. Like, certainly, I don't think feminism just came about because of trolls. And I don't think any of this alt-right business came about just because of trolls.
Wait, certain portions of feminism came about because of trolls. Because, what brought about third wave feminism was a whole bunch of people during the second wave saying, hey, go make me a sandwich, right?
The more you think about it, the more you wonder. How often a bad idea just came from some people who were fucking around, and then some people who got hold of it. And, like I say, it doesn't explain the entire alt-right. But fuck me, it probably explains some of it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that in every movement. Hannah, you were about to say something?
Yeah, just but piss for equality. Free bleeding.
Oh, that reminds me. When we were just talking about Hillary Clinton at the Grammys, and you made that example of, Hillary Clinton could show up on the stage and say, here's what I think of Donald Trump, and she'd pick her nose. For a goddamn fact that if that actually happened, that would be like the next free bleeding. You just see feminists on Twitter for the next couple of weeks just picking their nose.
Yep.
It.
That's true. Oh yeah. You could, to be honest, third wave feminists, especially the social media feminists that all they do is express feminist viewpoints on social media and defend feminist viewpoints on social media by saying that's not real feminism. My feminism is, and then saying something they think sounds better that is really just a different wording of the same thing. They'd all be doing it. You could get them to do anything. Just about. You probably could even get self-harm for equality could probably be made to trend. Guys, please do not do this. I'm not suggesting it at all. Just saying I'm sure, 100% sure that there are people involved that are stupid enough and gullible enough and desperate enough for attention that yeah, you could get, you know, I mean, hell, they're like at the elementary level of interaction with people. That when I was in the 5th grade, this thing went around. They called it a sissy test, and you took one of those, you know, pink rubber erasers and rubbed it on your arm or your leg or whatever until you rubbed a sore into your skin. And this was supposed to be the sissy test, and all the guys ended up, they had to do this, or the other guys would call them wimps. And of course, I started getting the girls to make fun of it because I thought it was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard of. Like, it doesn't make you tough. It makes you an idiot if you let somebody talk you into rubbing the skin off of your arm or your leg with an eraser. And once the girls started making fun of it and everything, it turned it off. You know, the guys were just like, well, we started calling it an idiot test. If you actually do it when somebody tries to push you into it, then you failed and you're an idiot. And that killed it. But up until that point, it was like all the guys were getting pressured into this, and you know, well, not all of them. There were guys that were like, "Fuck no, I'm not going to do that," and they got made fun of it for it. But that's 5th grade. That's like, you know, 10, 11-year-old kids, 12 if they flunked, you know, or had difficulties or something, started late. But you're seeing, you know, 20-year-olds doing this shit. You're seeing 20-year-olds fall for piss-free quality. You're seeing 20-year-olds fall for free bleeding. You're seeing an adult who had an art project where she shoved a ball of yarn up her vagina and knitted with it, and talked about how her vagina was such an important part of her life, and her life is ruled by her vagina.
And what do you call your act? It's called the Aristocrats.
I just like, what the fuck? You know, if my equivalent would be shoving, I don't know, number 10 crochet cotton up my nose and crocheting with it because my allergies are a big part of my life, right? I still think I should fake that and do a video.
I'm a walrus.
Yeah. It's the
Go
time
the
has
tube.
passed, or I would. But this is all, it's not just a matter of gullibility. It goes right back to that laziness I was talking about. And it's virtue signaling is so much easier than real activism. It's a lot easier to basically get involved in all of this shit and say women are oppressed and God damn it, I'm angry, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore, than it is to step forward and actually teach science to kids, or go to court with a falsely accused man, or learn self-defense because you're afraid of rape culture, or any of those things that would be a real world response to real problems. No, if you see somebody on the internet saying piss for equality, piss your pants for equality, and you post a picture of your wet pants online, that takes no real effort, and it makes you feel just as good. Why would the unintelligent, the unmotivated, and the disconnected be able to tell the difference?
Mm. Mike, were you about to say something before we moved on?
We've got a couple of super chats.
Okay.
Referring, I think, to what I was talking about earlier. The Great Indoors 1979 gives us €2. And says, F you, Mike. Flat Earth feminism has never been tried. I see all the things that you're doing there. And Observing Libertarian, hey dude, gives us $10. Otherkin are the result of AON ride-in role players who moved to Tumblr after AOL chats died. Unfortunately, they didn't tell enough of the Tumblrinas. This is all bullshit. We're in character.
Hey, I take offense to that. I'm Simpsons kin. I'm pretty sure I'm in my right mind. What the hell's AOL? America Online, I know.
Max knows he's joking. I think Max knows. Well, I don't. But since we're on air, I can't really take Max to the point where he has to admit that it's all a joke.
Who are you? Who are you guys? What are you doing in my room?
No, no, for the purposes of this broadcast, he really is Yellow Kin.
Thank you. And not John.
I've only just started to realize how funny it is greeting Max by saying yellow.
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 Oh, wait, no, let me do it in the Homer voice. Yellow. No, that wasn't that good. I can do a pretty good Homer Simpson impression, but not today. I need feminism because pervs keep touching the Earth's grand titans. Flat Earth feminists. I love you, Hannah. That's great. Excuse me.
I had to.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, we appreciate it. Please. Like I'm the kind of autistic person where, like, puns will make other people roll their eyes. I just laugh hysterically at them. They kill me. Okay.
Words could be similar. It is funny how words are similar. You got to admit.
Okay, moving on to the final topic of the day. This write-up comes to us via Mr. Mike J, and it's titled Robo Rape. Why do I get the feeling that's like the title of an 80s Terminator porno parody featuring Ron Jeremy? The idea of sex robots has been a hot topic as of late, with those for and against them eager to prove the validity of their points. One such person opposed to the idea is Katie Parker. Parker is a United Kingdom-based lawyer and founder of the Schools Consent Project, a group that seeks to educate school children about the legal and ethical importance of consent. Yeah, because that's not fucking creepy at all. She notes that there exist both pros and cons to sex robots, stating, why is this the woman that's talking about this? Okay, she says this. Some say these robots reinforce the objectification of women and the commodification of sex. Others that they allow otherwise isolated individuals to experience intimacy. But one specific model of sex robot has her very worried. The Roxy model of sexbot, flagship creation of the US-based company True Companion, is programmable with a number of different personalities. Oh, really? Oh, man, I could have fun with that. I would want mine to be, what's his name? Jerry Lewis. One such personality, named Frigid Farah, is designed to be more reserved and does not always like to engage in intimate activities, according to the company's website. Parker argues that this allows sexbot users to simulate rape. This is another quote. The fact that she is not a thinking, feeling human does not make her existence unproblematic. Shut up. The robots normalize sexual violence. They service and provide a distraction for criminal impulses that should probably be subject to psychiatric intervention. She also makes a case for criminalizing sex robots like Roxy, stating, I'm saying that way because there's 3 X's in her name. Quote, the proven relationship between one's behavior and the type of content one is exposed to makes a strong case for criminalization. But this is an argument that the company True Companion has heard before. In July of 2017, founder of the Everyday Sexism Project and feminist Laura Bates wrote a piece for the New York Times outlining issues with the Roxy sexbot that are very much in line with Parker's way of thinking. The company has since responded in the frequently asked questions section of their website, in which they defend their product and correct some of Bates's misconceptions. They state, quote, when our sex robot Roxy is using her Frigid Farah personality, she provides her opinion or feedback, just as any person would on a date. They hope that Frigid Farah can be used to help people understand how to be intimate with a partner, and that rape simply isn't an interaction that Roxy supports, nor is it something that our customers are requesting. Our customers are purchasing Roxy because they want to experience companionship, and rape is not a part of any reasonable companion experience. Okay, well, let me just solve this issue for you very quickly. Is the sex robot sentient? No? Then it's not rape. It's a fucking machine.
And, like, do couples not do roleplay? Roleplay is I mean, presumably this is a thing that couples get into when they get bored of ordinary sex, right? They They do role play. They pretend things are happening, and one quite popular one is one involving rape. I'll pretend you're raping me, darling. It'll be hot and shit like that, which is simulating rape, and it's okay because it's between two consenting adults. And by the way, it's I know that the common stereotype would be it's obviously the man doing a Christian Grey thing because he wants to pretend to be a rapist and dominate women, but that's not the case, darling. Most of the
rich and sexy.
Most of the people who calling for these kind of rape roleplay fantasies are the kind of people who read those kind of books. So if a woman like wants a man to engage in a rape roleplay fantasy with her, does that mean he's guilty of whatever this is because he's simulating rape? I mean, can a robot not simulate rape because they can't agree to the grounds of a simulation? Yeah, I've confused myself now. Someone else talk.
Yeah, the whole thing is ridiculous. This is an inanimate object, like Max pointed out. It's not experiencing any of the things that feminists or women in general attribute to rape that make it rape. It's an inanimate object. It does not have experiences. It doesn't even have genuinely intelligent artificial intelligence. It has programming and a limited understanding and set of responses. That's all it has. It's not. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have real thoughts. It doesn't have any of that. It's really, really ridiculous for anybody to treat it as a victim. So it cannot be argued from that perspective that there is anything rapey about the sex bot being programmed to be hesitant and all that shit. So it has to be that these feminists are designating women who are shy as rape victims if they have sex with guys who accommodate their shyness, who handle their shyness by being the person that takes on all of the burden of directing the situation and paying attention to the responses of their partner, and being reassuring and being masterful and so on. Basically, the idea is that if a woman is shy, she shouldn't get any, period. No sex for shy women anymore, because it makes the guy evil. It makes the guy a rapist if he accommodates that shyness. And they wouldn't word it that way, of course. They would word it that if a woman says no, she means no all the time, and you shouldn't ask again. Asking again is sexual harassment, and any sex that results from her changing her story after you ask again is rape. Well, no, that's not the case. There's a lot of gals that want the feeling of being pursued. And it doesn't mean get over here and force me. It means ask again. It means prove you want me. And that's it's the prerogative of the people involved in the relationship to decide whether or not that works for them. It irritates the hell out of some guys, and they'll walk away. And that's fine. That's their prerogative. They don't have to put up with that. If they would rather be with a woman who is more forward and open and wants to be an equal part of the interaction. And some guys like the feeling of pursuing and conquering, and that's not rapey. It's not a feeling of going against somebody's will. It's a feeling of having engaged in good salesmanship. I'm worth your attention. I'm cool enough that you changed your mind. I'm special enough that you decided, hey, you know what? I want this guy after all. That's not rapey. Feminists are idiots for trying to standardize sex. It's like trying to standardize testing. there are no standardized people. You aren't going to get that. All you're going to do is stifle the ability of the vast majority who don't fit your standard to form functional relationships, because they're going to be so busy second guessing each other that they won't be able to relate.
Oh man, why did I know this beforehand? The most super chats, Mike. Let's read them down.
Oh, sorry. I was
looking at sex robots. Yes, we know.
Yes, I
Please
was
continue.
slacking and looking at sex robots. Oh God. Okay, what have we got? We've got $20.
Hey, Mike, I don't know if the rest of everybody else can hear you, but I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I was
okay.
far from my mic while I was looking.
Muttering away from the mic.
Okay, Observing Libertarian gives us another $20. Inanimate objects have no will, nothing occurs but fantasy. Fantasy is not reality. An ability to determine fantasy from reality is the legal definition of insanity. She, like other feminists, is insane by legal definition. Arguable.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Go on.
I was gonna say, like, I'm just trying to imagine, like, how would, like, if you can rape a sex robot, how would the robot be able to make that accusation? Like, they're not sentient to a point where they can come forward and say that they raped me. And on top of that, you know, if Observing Libertarian's analysis is true that the robots are insane, if you went to court, can you just...
He wasn't accusing the robot of being insane. He was accusing the feminist of being insane for not being able to tell the difference between fantasy and reality.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I'm an idiot. Okay, moving on. What else? Oh, yeah. Okay, they're in the live show. Here, I'll read this one. Cyberzerk sends us 50 sex, so now we have 150 sex in total. I raped a robot and it welded a Toyota spoiler from the 90s to my cock. It's not going to be very pleasant for the woman. I mean, unless they're into that type of thing. It's just, wouldn't that be sharp and cold? And Hannah, I know you unmuted. You're going to say something.
Just want to say that sounds incredibly inconvenient. And did you did you say no spoilers?
No spoilers.
Because that sounds like it might be rape. Is it like is that a reverse? The opposite of circumcision, adding something to the cock.
No, it's just called free advertising. Hey, that was great sex. While you're at it, why don't we go buy a Toyota? 0% financing.
Just had to truck that one out there, didn't you?
Oh, yes. Jeez. Let's get the wheel moving on this state. No, I can't do it.
I'm getting tired of this type of humor. Okay, we've wrecked that one. Let's move on.
Oh, like I said, those puns make me laugh harder than they should. Okay. Mike, you want to read the next one?
Okay, Wise Mage Zero gives us $10 and says, quote, pretend to rape me, it'll be hot and shit, end quote. Honey Badger Radio 2018. Did I say
that's
that?
what Mike said. I didn't say that. Okay, let's get that straight.
These do not reflect the views of Honey Badger Radio, etc., etc.
Yes.
Okay.
However, I can report that the body temperature does become elevated during vigorous activity. So if you resist, it's totally hot.
Yes.
It's totally hot.
Joey Jojo gives us $10. It's about time you got here, bro. So what am I supposed to do with my extremely high sex drive if I can't watch porn, sex bots, prostitutes, sexy video game characters, and I am one of the 80% of men where sex is unavailable to?
Stick your dick in a bagel. I don't know, a warm bagel. Yeah, I hear you, man.
Well, you know, there's other societies where the solution to that has been strap a bomb on and go kill a lot of people. So I think the porn, sex bots, prostitutes, and sexy video game characters are a much better solution. But, you know, I'm not a feminist. Feminists are trying to lead us into a very self-destructive society. And if you look at civilizations where it's not just a social thing, but a government mandated or a church mandated thing that the majority of the male population is denied relationships, and a very small few, a small percentage of the population basically hoards all of the family relationships for themselves. All the women, all of the ability to produce children, all of the ability basically to provide the continuation of society. You end up with a large mass of super disposable men, not just men subject to the male disposability phenomenon as it is, but men who are so disposable that the rest of society doesn't give a shit if they use them as cannon fodder. And we end up with war after war after war. And if you look at that, how that has played out in the Middle East, that is exactly what has happened. Is you have men strapping bombs to their chest and walking into people's weddings and walking into public venues, grocery stores, movie theaters, and shit like that, and blowing themselves up and taking a lot of people with them. It is the most dysfunctional response possible, and it is a direct result, really. I mean, I know a lot of people would say indirect, but I think it's a direct result of this shit. It doesn't mean it's inevitable. It doesn't mean that's what you have to do. Obviously, it would be the worst possible thing, and for anybody who's too stupid to figure it out, no, I'm not pushing that. What I'm saying is, don't take away all of men's outlets for their sexual energy. Don't demonize male sexuality. Don't demonize expressions of male sexuality. Don't demonize men. Because what you get isn't what you think you're going to get. So if you're a feminist out there and listening, you might not like hearing it, but this kind of thing happens because of people like you and advocacy like yours. And as far as the inability, the lack of access, I think a lot of that comes from people judging men too harshly. Like some of the coolest people that I have ever met, some of the people that I dated were not considered conventionally attractive at all. And it's sad to me that other people don't get the privilege of getting to know those guys, because they get put off by physical appearances or lack of social skills or too much interest in some intellectual area where everybody else is, either they're bored by it or they're just not smart enough to understand it. That's something that to me is very sad, and it's sad both ways. It's sad that guys in that position are denied companionship because other people don't make the effort to try to figure out how to relate to them. And it's sad to me that other people never find out how cool the person is that they're not trying to relate to, because they're too lazy to get past all he ever thinks about is inorganic chemistry, or he's got zits, or his eyes are too small or too far apart or too big or too close together or whatever. He's too fat, he's too skinny, he's too tall, he's too short. Big fucking deal. Not allowed to say that stuff about women. Get over it when it's a guy. Get to know people. Most people are actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Quick story. In respect to that, it's because they can't fall back on their looks. They actually have to enrich their character. And thankfully, I've been able to be in a lot of friendly relationships as well as personal relationships with people that aren't conventionally attractive. Like, for example, there's this one girl who's a genius musician that I dated for a little while. She had eyes like the headlights on the Jeep because they were really close together, I used to call her AC, almost Cyclops. I'm just joking. That's not a real story.
That's horrible. Actually, though, you should see me when I get really, really mad. I have serial killer eyes. It's bad.
I don't want to see you mad, Hannah. You're
No,
a really nice
I
person.
It just bugs the shit out of me that people are so judgmental, and I mean, I understand shyness. Like I can be shy. I'm not an incredibly social person, but I still like people, and I like getting to know people, and I find people's perspectives interesting, and people's different outlooks interesting, and even people's obsessions. Like you get somebody whose personal not brand of autism, but manifestation of autism is that all they ever talk about is one thing, one area, one topic. Like I said, all he ever thinks about is inorganic chemistry. I actually met somebody like that. Everything that he talked about, he expressed in terms of chemistry, and like a lot of people didn't understand what he was saying, but if you listen to the things that he was trying to express, the thoughts that he was getting out, and the opinions that he was expressing and everything, he was actually a really interesting guy with a lot of interesting outlooks on things, and he looked at things from a different perspective, partly because everything had to make sense in terms of cause and effect. And and it's one of those things where like people don't get past a surface factor like that, and they really miss out, and they isolate people who really don't deserve to be isolated. And it's been, instead of being, there's a degree to which it's been alleviated by the availability of internet communication, because people are able to relate. Instead of in real time, they're able to relate in text over the course of several days, and somebody can get their point across and say, I didn't express that very well, this is what I was trying to say, whereas in the moment the person's already walked away. But at the same time, I think there's a bit of isolation that's been grown by that, because you have people demonizing the crime of thinking in a different pattern, or looking at things from a different angle, even when that angle is as simple as, I'm looking at cause and effect, not how this makes you feel. And that's wrong. Yeah. And it's something that we need to grow out of as a society. And I think if we can do that, we will find people a lot less isolated, and a lot more able to engage in companionship with each other, regardless of our differences.
And the subject about whether or not robot sex can be rape will be a complete moot point. And maybe we won't even need sex robots. But yeah, like Hannah, a lot of what you said just hit right at home. And I want to thank you for saying that all, because there's a lot of really interesting people out there that can enrich your life, and you're not going to get it necessarily from the places that you would expect to or want to get it. We have one more super chat from the Observing Libertarian. Damn, you guys are just fucking sending in the super chats like mad. Thank you so much. It gives us $10. He says, more to the point, if you are attempting to control what people are permitted to fantasize about, being that fantasies happen within the mind, you are attempting to exert, as law, mind control. Damn, this guy is a fucking genius. He's why? Okay, Observing Libertarian, I hope you have a good job, because it really pissed me off if this what's her name, Laura Parker bitch, is making more money preaching her bullshit than you are, because you're preaching the gospel, man.
Actually, I just want to point out, if you do a search on the Honey Badger Brigade blog, you will find there is writing by Observing Libertarian. He actually is, in figurative and technical terms, a genius. So you have that, and we're lucky to have him involved with the group. So yeah, just saying.
Okay, I'm sorry I didn't know that. Like I'm not involved with every facet of
no.
Radio.
That's when I want everybody to his writing, because he's actually there's quite a bit of value to reading what he's published on the blog.
Okay. Yeah, Observing Libertarian, if you have Twitter, send me some of your stuff. I'd love to read it. Zarinx gives us $5. Thank you very much, Zarinx. You are the man. If I could give you a bath, I would. Just to show my appreciation. It looks like Andrew's about to type something else. I wonder if that means there's another super chat. Is that a super chat? FYI, it's getting close to 8. Trump's State of the Union is at 9. Not sure how many of y'all were planning on watching. I'm not fucking watching. I don't really care. It's pretty much the same shit over and over again, regardless if you're a Democrat or Republican, in my opinion. Observing Libertarian sends us another $5. I'm a lowly security guard and I make shit for money, bro. Oh, that's too bad to hear, man. Yeah, like I said, send me some of your stuff so I could share it around.
You know, you're almost right about the mind control thing. It's not possible, well, yet, to control what people are permitted to fantasize about. It's only possible to ban the objects that help them fantasize. It's just like the drug law all over again. It's just this is an object or a substance that helps me fantasize, and that's enough for it to get banned. Because governments are a bit like finicky Jewish mothers. I don't know why I said Jewish there, but you know what I mean. It's when their children are out of control, they look to things their children are doing that might be making them go out of control, and they say things like, "Oh, well, I have this thing that helps me fantasize. It might be a robot, it might be a substance, it might be a kind of pornography, and that must be the thing that's causing all of the discord."
You're right, though. That's not a particular group. That's just a finicky mom thing. Oh shit, I can't think of the guy's name. What's his name? The comic book guy, the guy that, well, I should say the anti-comic book doctor. God, what was his name? Total brain fart. I know the guy's name. Anyway, and the chat will. No. The guy that his bullshit resulted in the censorship standards that are applied to comic books today. And I'm sure somebody in the chat will provide me with that information, because everybody involved with Gamergate knows who I'm talking about. It's Dr. Wortham, worthless. And like the whole idea that mental stimulation causes dysfunction. No, failure to think things through logically and rationally and have control over your behavior causes dysfunctional behavior. Mr. Prickly, by the way, was the one who said it first. And the comic code is the thing I was talking about, and the non-professional pointed that out first. So, but yeah, this is like, you can try to police thought. The government has tried to police thought in the past, and they will try to police thought again. And it's absolute shit when they do it. It's ineffective, but they will do it anyway. Yeah, and Sinfinity Info says Jewish mothers are just blatantly honest about it. Well, okay, at least they're honest. But the fact is, it's the namby-pamby, nanny type of outlook on human behavior, people herding, that exists everywhere, and it's something that it never is functional. But that never stops people from trying to engage in it. It's something that we're always going to have to be vigilant against. There will always be people out there that think that if they get rid of the incorrect stimulus, that all of a sudden everybody's ideas will only be good, or if they have bad ideas, they will never act on them. And frankly, it's not true, because people are lazy, and people make mistakes, and people learn the wrong lessons in life sometimes, and some people are just fucking assholes. And you'll never get rid of any of those things. We're always going to have to contend with those things, just the same as we're always going to have to contend with attempts at using nannyism to try to control them. And it's just the way it is. But yeah.
Yeah.
It is an attempt at mind control. The thought police is an attempt at mind control. It's just not a functional attempt. There is no such thing as a functional attempt.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to think that the majority of the governments of the world realize that going into other people's minds is just not that good of an idea, because at least they might be self-reflectory enough to realize, hey, that would include me to some extent. We got to finish this show quickly because I really got to use the washroom. I know it's TMI, but it's just the reality of things. So we got a few more super chats. Let's just go through them quickly. Seeking Origin sends us $5. You're the man. He says, "Oi, Streamlabs." I don't get it. What's Streamlabs?
I was hoping someone else knew.
Let us know in the chat, guys. Destron1201 says it's $2. Says, really trying to stop Futurama from happening. Lol. Oh yeah, I was saying, like, during this entire discussion, I was just thinking back to that episode 2 where the guy's always trying to make out with his Monroe bot because he has Marilyn Monroe sex robot, and basically all society gets their own version of the woman that, like, from Hollywood that they always wanted, and society just goes down the tubes. It's very depressing, although it was quite a hilarious episode. Let's please hope that we don't go down that road. And then finally, Observing Libertarian just sent us another $2. Dude, you're on fire today. Thank you so much. He said, tweet sent Max, same name on Twitter. Okay, I'll make sure to pass that around. I'll make sure as soon as we're done doing the after show, I'll put that in my favorites so I can read your content. Yeah, if you guys go to honeybadgerbrigade.com, is that correct, Hannah? That we can read his pieces there?
Yeah, yep. Go to honeybadgerbrigade.com, search for Observing Libertarian, and you will find some writing.
All right, awesome.
And if you don't do a search, you'll still find some great writing, but you won't necessarily find his, so you got to search for his.
Yeah, and read Hannah's writing too. She's also quite brilliant. Anyways, that'll do it for us today for HBR News 144. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. Hey, before you hit that X button, I know your hand is on your mouse. I know that's what you're about to do. Just listen to me for a second, okay? Before you go, please hit that like button. And let me tell you how much this has actually helped us. You know, we've been asking people for the last few shows to make sure they hit that like button because it helps with the YouTube algorithm. Here's how much it has helped us, okay? The last show that we did last week, on our Badger live streams channel, we streamed there as well as simultaneously on Honey Badger Radio. On that channel, we got more views and more likes on any video on that channel than we ever had. And I strongly suspect that the reason why is because we had tons of people following my directive, hitting the like button, maybe also hitting the subscribe button, which would really be appreciated too. That made the video pass around a whole lot more and a lot more people got hold of it. So please hit that like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Like I just said, we have tons of great stuff coming out on Honey Badger Radio all the time. Stuff from my fellow panelists as well as from myself. And we'd love to hear what you guys' thoughts are on any or all of the topics that we discussed today, whether you agree with us or disagree with us. It's important to keep the conversation going. I know there are a lot of people that are going to want to offer thoughts on the sex robots as they did during the live show. Anyways, I'd like to thank Mike for doing all the technical stuff and being as insightful as he always is, and Hannah for making me laugh and also for being insightful. And I'd like to thank myself because I like to, pat myself on the back. It's my favorite pastime. That's why I have scars. Until next time, have a lovely, lovely day and stay yellow.